Hey guys, I'm shooting this video to respond to Shayna's question about how to not just totally kill your results over the holidays, which is a great question and something that I think all of us are thinking a lot about as we enter the holiday season. I'm kind of shooting from the hip here because I have a lot to say about it, and so I haven't exactly structured specific tips, but I'm sure this won't be the last conversation we have about it. So there's just a few things that I want to go over that are kind of like the big picture to me. So for starters, I know it's very easy to hit like this time of year, maybe a week or two from now, and feel like once we're in mid-November, like it's all downhill until January. And I know especially when you travel for the holidays, it can really feel like from November to January, like every year out of all your routines, you know, your whole life is up in the air, you're looking at a suitcase, you know, all of this stuff, there's more stress. But if you kind of extract yourself from the situation and think objectively, the holidays themselves are not even a handful of days. You've got Thanksgiving Day, Christmas Day, Christmas Eve, or I guess Hanukkah is arguably more than a handful. I mean, it is more than a handful. I know how many days it is. But you know, overall, the actual holidays themselves are not a huge chunk of time. That if you went totally off the rails, Thanksgiving Day, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, you still wouldn't really hinder your progress much, if at all, because those are just a few days in the snapshot of your entire year. The issue, I think, for most of us becomes when we let our mentality dictate how we act, that we get that it's the holiday season and kind of allow ourselves to let things go downhill. As we start to think like, well, Thanksgiving is coming next week and I'm going to eat a ton then, so does it really matter if I eat a ton now? Yes, it does. So I think part of staying on top of things is not allowing yourself to make those kind of rationalizations. To try to stay as close to business as usual for as much of the time as possible. And I know that's harder if you're traveling, but you can still do it for the most part. Not every meal that you eat while you're traveling, not every meal you eat at a restaurant, not every meal in November and December is worthy of an indulgence. So just because you're traveling and you don't have a kitchen doesn't mean every time you go out to eat, you should get the most indulgent thing on the menu. Most of those meals should still be your basic, pick a lean protein, pick a veggie, pick a smart carb, pick a healthy fat. So sticking to that, you know, kind of meal template, like laid out in the Body Transformation Guide, will be very helpful most of the time. I am not an advocate for restricting yourself on Thanksgiving, you know, on the major holidays themselves. I certainly wouldn't tell you to count your calories or count your macros on that day or, you know, for that meal. It's only one meal. Just relax. That said, though, you still can be mindful of what you're doing. A lot of the foods on Thanksgiving and Christmas are carb and fat dense. So what I do is, you know, try to be mindful of where am I going to get my protein from. Thanksgiving is easy because there's turkey. There's usually some kind of veggies, or green beans, or there's a salad, or there's Brussels sprouts, or there's something. There's usually veggies available, which is actually better than you can say for a lot of meals. So I would, you know, fill up my plate with mostly those things and then try little bits of all of the other things. You know, I know, Shayna, you mentioned casseroles. Love a good casserole too. Doesn't mean that you need to eat half of each casserole that's presented to you at once. If you like it, great, eat it, enjoy it, but be mindful. This is a great time to practice eating slowly, paying attention to your hunger and fullness cues, and, you know, really trying to enjoy your food. These are foods that you may get only once a year, and of course you want to enjoy them. For me, I don't eat stuffing, or I guess in the South you call it dressing, which is very weird to me. I don't eat that except at Thanksgiving, so there is no chance that I'm going to not eat stuffing on Thanksgiving. But, you know, I try to be mindful of, am I enjoying this bite as much as I was enjoying the first bite? So that's one thing. And then, like I said, I guess looking kind of objectively at, you know, your next, say, 2 months. I know a lot of you are going to have work parties, are going to have friend parties, family parties. There's a lot more parties this time of year. But, you know, look at your next 2 months in the calendar and write in all of the parties you're either invited to or expecting to go to, and see how many, you know, events that is. On the days that you have a special event, prioritize your lean protein and your veggies the rest of the day. Kind of, you know, save up some room for either alcohol or party indulgences by making sure to get your protein and your veggies in earlier in the day, and kind of save your carbs and your fat for later in the day. By mapping out what your next couple months look like, you can look pretty objectively at, you know, okay, every Friday for the next 6 weeks I have an event. What does that mean for the rest of the week? To me, it says, you know, Monday through Thursday, I'm going to be a little bit more mindful, maybe a little bit stricter with my diet, knowing that Friday is going to be more of an indulgence than usual. I'm going to make sure, more so than other times of year, to schedule in time to grocery shop, to meal prep, to make sure that I have no excuses to be prepared the rest of the week. Doing the same thing with your workouts is, just because you're a little bit busier than usual, or you're going to more parties than usual, or you're traveling a little bit more than usual, doesn't mean that you don't have time to exercise. Maybe you don't have time to go to the gym, but you can almost always fit in a 10 or 15 minute workout to break a sweat at some point during the day. And doing that is going to help keep you on track food-wise, because you're feeling like, okay, I'm still doing something that's good for my health. I don't want to, you know, go off the rails as much now with my eating. And then the last thing that comes to mind is revisiting your BAMs, your bare ass minimums, which we've talked about before. And those are like the absolute minimum you need to do each day to feel like the day was a success. To me, my BAMs, especially when I'm traveling, are to get some kind of workout in every day. It doesn't have to be much. Maybe it's 15 minutes of body weight stuff in my hotel room, but I break a sweat, I get my heart rate up, it feels good. And then to get a lean protein and a veggie at every meal. If I do those things, I feel like, okay, I did the best I could given my circumstances, and this was a win. So if you have not already written down your BAMs, I would suggest that you do that, and you post that somewhere visible in your house. Maybe it's prioritizing sleep, because you know that when you get busy, you get stressed, and it just wreaks havoc on everything. So your BAMs may be different, but establishing what those are is important and will help you during the holiday season. And then I guess this is the last thing that I'm thinking of. You can healthify special recipes. I know this is kind of polarizing, that some people feel like I will never mess with my grandmother's recipe. It is what it is. It's got 4 sticks of butter and it's delicious, and, you know, that's the end. And that's fine. But if you're feeling concerned about, I know how, how calorie dense and, not really healthy for me these certain foods are, you can make tweaks. I do it all the time. I don't do a ton of baking or following a ton of recipes, but when I do, the first thing that I look at is like how much oil the recipe calls for, and I usually half it. You can't even taste the difference. Same thing with like butter, sugar, those kind of things. You could probably do with a third less or half as much and not even really notice the difference. So feel free to kind of play around a little bit and, make some of those healthy substitutions. And if you're in charge of a dish, make it something that is aligned with your goals. You don't have to be making some decadent dessert. You can say, I'm going to make this really delicious salad that I'm going to enjoy and I know is aligned with my goals, and other people are going to enjoy too. And I'm providing, my loved ones with veggies and nutrients that I know are going to make them feel good. So what your personal contributions, make sure that there's something that, yes, you're proud of, but also that, are kind of aligned with what you're trying to do. So I guess to recap, just keep things in perspective and know that, the actual holidays are pretty insignificant over the course of the year. This is the time of year to kind of buckle down a little bit more when it's not an actual holiday. But I think we tend to build these things up in our heads so much that they become like larger than life, and we get so stressed out about like, how am I possibly going to handle, you know, the time between Thanksgiving and Christmas? Like, well, you're going to have, you know, a handful of special events, and as long as you take a step back and, you know, kind of map out your schedule and be mindful of, you know, where those things are falling and what you can do surrounding them to have them be, you know, kind of isolated indulgences. Maybe set a plan in place for, this is what I do the day before a special event or holiday. This is what I do the morning of. This is what I do the following day, so that I am immediately back on track. Maybe that's Friday after Thanksgiving, you wake up, you do a quick workout, and then you eat a balanced, nutritious breakfast. And that's kind of like your reset of, okay, yesterday was fun, Thanksgiving is over, and I'm right back on track. So I guess like the more quickly you can get back to some semblance of routine, whether it's your BAMs or your, you know, full routine, that's a really good place to start. So again, I am happy to discuss this at length. I'm sure I'll do more videos about it, more posts about it. Feel free to comment below on any tips that you have or anything that you're concerned about specifically, and we can address them. Talk to you soon.